I probably need to introduce this. These stories come from a couple of books which I did back in 2000, 2001, which I wrote and illustrated. It says they're in black and white, but also illustrated in colour. And I sent these out to a few friends, and these stories come from those books, and I've been asked by my friend Mike to read them. So, if anyone's to blame, it's me. But anyway, here we go with the first story, which is called Bicycle Days. My introduction to cycling was by way of a tricycle. It had solid rubber tyres. Oh, how I envied Paul with his pump-ups. Well, at least I did until he rode over a fragment of beer bottle down in the pub car park, and he had to wait days for his dad to perform what seemed to us magic rites over the wheel. We watched as he took a spoon and two forks from the kitchen drawer, filled a white enamel bowl with water, and got his little oilskin tool roll from his own cycle saddlebag. We knelt down on the kitchen lino with him as he unfurled the toolkit to reveal a spanner with nut shapes at one end and a C shape at the other, a roll of black insulating tape that smelled of freshly creosoted garden fences, and a little oblong tin with a picture upon it of a man in doublet and hose with mud-stained cloak and rough collar astride an all-steel bicycle. Out came the wheel retention device, which was a bent nail, and the tyre and tube were persuaded to leave the rim with the help of the forks and spoon. After a few strokes of the pump, the tube was ready for baptism. It was like an endless black slippery eel as he teased and worried it under the water, until it gave forth a tiny stream of bubbles. Now, had we been of an earlier, more cultured generation, our expressions alone might have told sufficiently of our joy. But as we weren't, we gave great whoops of delight, which at least had the merit of spontaneity. Paul's dad took great pains to remove the tube carefully from the water, so that the place was not lost from whence the bubbles came. Now, I was all for drying the tube with the kitchen towel, but Paul's dad didn't think it was quite the thing, so we settled on an old vest. He made the sign of the cross over the tube. With a hiss it shrivelled ready to be prepared for the anointing ceremony of rubber solution and the healing patch. The climax came with the sprinkling of a pinch of magic white dust over the patch. That, he said, would repel all nails, glass and flints. Perhaps it was old stock, that magic dust. Now, it wasn't long before I found that by going very fast around a sharp bend, my tricycle would catapult me onto the pavement. Now, it was while I was experimenting to see just how fast I could go before this happened, I discovered I could keep one of the back wheels in the air and still keep on pedalling forwards, and in a straight line too. Once I found I could do it, riding with both wheels firmly on the pavement was poor stuff. I'd ride everywhere with one rear wheel skimming the air, and I was hoping for a talent scout from a circus would notice, but only Mrs. Fyford from next door did. This exciting period of stunt tricycling was all too brief. The overloaded wheel developed to wobble, and the inevitable occurred when the rim and hub parted company as the spokes cried enough. It was decided a better, more caring home should be found for the tricycle, and if I could prove I would treat it properly, I might have a two-wheeler. "Oh, with pump-up tyres?" I asked. It came to us very second-hand, or third or fourth hand more likely, with thick black orange peel paint, rusted rims and handlebars. My father cursed the dealer who sold it for a rogue as he stripped it. Gradually, though, on the day that I would be 7, it became my first bicycle. Pillarbox red enamelled frame and white mudguards, new chrome-plated handlebars, and joy of joy, a bell. The proud name was borne on the steering head, Hercules. It carried a new white celluloid pump, and hanging from the eyelets at the rear of the saddle a little leather tool bag with a popper fastening containing a silver spanner like Paul's dad's. On that first morning of July, a sunny one naturally, I wheeled my red bicycle proudly through the kitchen, down the hallway onto the street. Dad held the back of the saddle with one hand and handlebars with the other, whilst I climbed excitedly on. Yes, Hilary and Tensing must have felt like this. Although I wasn't short of oxygen, my breathing became quite erratic as my heart leapt in my chest. Dad ran beside me as I pedalled those first few wobbly yards, shouting the odd word of encouragement like, "Don't look at the front wheel, you'll fall off." In fact, there was no shortage of helpful advice from family and friends on things to do and not to do when riding. Don't use the front brake, you'll go over the handlebars. Don't pump the tyres up too hard, you'll pop them. As to the first of these, I wonder why a bicycle was provided with a front brake if it was so unreasonable in its operation. Could I find anyone who'd actually been thrown over their handlebars? And if so, what did they do to prevent its recurrence? Now, after an exhaustive search, I could find no one who'd actually had first-hand experience of this phenomenon. But there were plenty of those who had heard of someone who had. So I decided to try it for myself. In case of readers who may be of a nervous disposition, I include myself among them, perhaps I've been blessed with peculiar good fortune or ineffectual brakes. I've yet to be thrown off a bicycle by the sole use of the front brake. I've been sent earthwards for other things, but not that. So anyway, there I was, 7 years old, wobbling my way around on soft tyres and worrying about that front brake. Now then, riding that tricycle on two wheels was good fun while it lasted, but it was as fish fingers are to fried fillet of haddock compared to bicycling as I was now experiencing it. It wasn't I was riding to exciting places. After all, I was limited to the side roads, which of course in the 1950s were wonderfully free of traffic, although you did have to watch out for Mrs. Pfeiffer shovelling up the manure left by the greengrocer's horse. No, it was the exhilaration of being on two wheels, a feeling that's with me still. Once I'd learned to ride, it wasn't too long before I started to look at accessories in bicycle shop windows whenever I had the chance. Mileometers, speedometers, rat trap pedals, clamps for carrying tennis rackets on the front forks, electric hooters, they all clamoured to be seen on my bicycle. I started to save for a mileometer after being told a new speedometer cost more than my bicycle, but when I was in the shop I was seduced by a siren. Well, actually it was a torpedo-shaped electric horn made in Hong Kong with a lift-off cover where the battery, which was extra, lived. I took that hooter apart to see how it worked, and I discovered one of life's little truths. Some things are meant to go together once only. Well, thank you for staying to the end, and if you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down. No, don't do that. And add a comment if you like. Why not? I always like reading comments. This is only for a very few friends, of course, so it's not on public display by any means. So you're going to get the link to it if you're a friend that I think might enjoy listening to this. Anyway, Mike will, I'm sure, share this with one or two people, and if you did like it, share it with a few of your friends too. Why not? Anyway, we might see you again, perhaps for another story from Penny Plain, Twopence Coloured.